We actively highlight a company's CSR initiatives during the recruitment process. This
Right.
includes showcasing our efforts in areas such as environmental sustainability, community engagement, ethical business practices, because candidates today are increasingly looking to work for companies that are aligned with their values and
Mm.
commitment to CSR. And I think it's very important for them, and they would ask for some time during their regular day work life that some work time is assigned so that they can focus on those CSR initiatives and do it by themselves.
Welcome to the All in Recruitment podcast by Manatal, where we explore best practices, learnings, and trends with leaders in the recruitment space. If you like our content, please subscribe to our channels on YouTube and Spotify to stay tuned for our weekly episodes. I'm your host, Lydia. This week, we have Akshay Mathur of Experian. Great to have you with us, Akshay. Good
Thanks,
evening.
Lydia. Good evening.
So tell us a little bit more about your journey in the people space, Akshay. I see you've got extensive experience and really a broad approach to it.
No, thanks for having me, and good evening to all the listeners. So my journey into the people space was quite interesting, so to say, right? It wasn't by design, but rather by accident. My foundation is in the business, and I began my career as a data analyst. And it was during this time that I was given the opportunity to delve into a technical training, and that's where it all began. From there, I transitioned into recruitment, became an integral part of the startup ecosystem. And over the course of the years, I wore many hats, in the talent management and recruitment space at both regional and global level. I had the privilege of leading multiple build-outs, setting up cross-functional teams in multiple geography, establishing talent acquisition center of excellence. Additionally, I've taken on the role of what I like a lot is product manager in the HR tech space, which has been incredibly rewarding for me. I know I can just go on and on, but yeah,
how so has it been rewarding for you, especially in the product side?
I would say, it gives you an opportunity to think a little out of the box from your daily run, right, of running, recruiting your teams. And something I think I discovered over the course of my working that, I'm somebody who really loves to, have the someone in between who understands a bit of technology. I'm a functional expert, but and I can, weave a story between these two, a diverse group and get some work done out of it. So that's how it really started off. And then, I kept on building it out. My speciality in this, something I think I feel that I'm able to break down the big picture into smaller pieces and help it to articulate to these two side of people of different side of coin, and then get it going. So it has been very interesting, the HR tech space for me, because there I get to operate not like a leader, but more like an SME. So that helps you to really grow your intellectual curiosity. And, and that's how I've actually grown over the course of years, where, I've spent, I would say 20% of my time doing these projects, which I like to call them gig. And thanks to my different organizations, because they gave me the elbow room to, do something apart from my day job. And I think that has been very spectacular and I would say rewarding. So
and the data analyst background and the technical background, I suppose, is going to be extremely useful now, especially in the past 5 years, 10 years, where we're really looking into data for talent acquisition and recruitment.
No, absolutely. You're right, Lydia. And something which, I really relate to it, that for me, conversations around, how I can actually support the business in the talent strategy aligns a lot more than talking about just transactional part of recruiting, which I know a lot of us do it, and we are, we end up doing it and we are supposed to do it. But I think for me, it's more of the talent advisor, whether it way back it was probably my hiring manager. Now it is my leaders, whether they're C level executives or the CTOs. And I think I love doing that, so I think toggling those ideas, ideating it, and then coming together to solve a problem at a global or a strategic level is something which is very enticing.
Now, actually, how do you align talent acquisition strategies like you've formulated before? How do you align them with a business's overall objectives?
I know it's a very question which is asked again and again, and I would say the response doesn't change as much. So, but I think what's more important is it's essentially been driven by multiple things, and let me just demystify it one by one. First and foremost, it is crucial to understand the business goal, whether it is a market expansion, innovation, cost reduction, or enhancing customer experience, because these objectives help us to identify what type of talent is needed. I think that's number one. Next, collaboration with the leadership is very vital. Regular engagement with the senior leaders and department heads ensures that the talent strategy are in sync with the broader business strategy, and that's where I think data-driven decision play a very significant role. Utilizing analytics to identify trends, forecast what is the need for the future, and then helps us to take more informed decisions. Employer branding, I would say, again, sits at the center of it because it resonates with company's value and culture. And that's one story which really helps us to attract talent, not only skilled, but also good, which are culturally fit. I think that's important. And then agile recruitment. I know it's a very lot word to be used, but I think it's important that we leverage technology and are more efficient in our overall approach. And how can we not talk about diversity and inclusion? I think that's, I would say, center to what we do. And I think umpteen times we have understood that it creates a more innovative and a better decision making if we have a more inclusive workforce. And finally, I think we need to continue to work on process improvement. I think goes without saying. It's 2 steps ahead and take a half step back and fix the problem is. I think that's very important because listening is, I think, paramount to what you do. And I think I believe in doing that, and that's what I preach and ensure that me and my team are always aligned to these few preamble when we're trying to work or create a strategy which is weaved around what business is expecting out of us.
And so many of these components that you just mentioned they're all connected and linked in one way or another to enhance their talent strategy. So what do you think might be the binding factor for all these components? What do you think might be the singular factor that will make all these components work?
I think, first of all, align to the larger business goal. I think it's very important that, as the leaders and the people in your team they are in the know that, what are we working towards? I think that's the glue. If we know what's the end goal, then I think everyone comes together and play their role in whatever ways, whether it's an individual contributor or as a leader or as a manager. I think the way of reaching the goal may be different, but the goal is something which is common, the commonality, and I think everyone needs to be very clear about it. And as leaders on the ground, I think it becomes our duty to ensure that we make that very transparent and open to our folks, so that they can really support in the journey.
Now, in terms of the business itself, how do you integrate concepts like sustainability and even activities around CSR, corporate social responsibility, into your TA practices?
I think these topics have become, I would say, bedrock of whatever we are doing, whether it's in recruiting or anything else. I think it's very important and very concerning as well. So there again, I would say I want to be very prescriptive so that the listeners are able to understand it. And these are my approach. I'm not saying these are the right one, but probably the ones which have worked for me. So number one, I would say sustainable hiring practices. And what do I mean by that? It means focus on reducing our environmental footprint and leveraging digital tools in recruitment. This includes like virtual interviews, digital onboarding, which minimize the need for travel and paper usage. And I think something all of us learned the hard way during COVID. I think suddenly we had to start interviewing people over online medium, and the days of asking somebody to show up at the office not once, probably multiple times is thing of the past. But as a look back, I think that taught us to be a little bit more environmentally conscious. So I think sometimes, as I say, necessity is mother of innovation, and I think COVID made us learn a lot. So I think that's number one. Secondly, I would say promoting CSR initiatives. We actively highlight a company's CSR initiatives during the recruitment process. This includes showcasing our efforts in areas such as environmental sustainability, community engagement, ethical business practices, because candidates today are increasingly looking to work for companies that are aligned with their values and commitment to CSR. And I think it's very important for them, and they would ask for some time during their regular day work life that some work time is assigned so that they can focus on those CSR initiatives and do it by themselves. So I think it's a combination of aligning value system and then ensuring that we give them the opportunity to really express themselves whenever there is an opportunity. I think that's important. So that's on that bit. Thirdly, I would say diverse and inclusive hiring practices. So we prioritize that piece because it's important to foster a more innovative and creative workforce, but also reflects on a commitment to social responsibility. So we ensure that our processes are free from bias and they actively seek to hire from underrepresented group. But I think they are unconscious bias, which are part of each and every individual of his or her upbringing and the value system, the society. So I think as long as we are conscious about those biases and self-correct ourselves, I think that makes a difference. And I think also as an organization, we invest on training our individuals, whether they are recruiting teams or the hiring teams, that they go through some kind of a learning or conversation, which could be one-to-many or one-to-one, just to help them to understand that what are those kind of biases which unknowingly they are practicing, and then help them to identify that and then seek redressal of those. So I think that's it's an ongoing thing, because today I may become de-biased, if I use that word, but again, I get into a pattern. So I think I need to continue to, be very sure about what I'm doing and how I'm doing, and somebody is able to support me. I think nothing like it. So I think that's another piece on it. Then fourthly, I would say, employee volunteering programs. I think we encourage, and when I say we, I'm talking about my experience throughout my career. So I think, facilitating employee participation in voluntary community services. And this has to be very integrated into the employer branding and recruitment messaging, because that's how you're able to demonstrate, commitment or giving back to society.
Yeah. So I was going to ask you about how, what does it look like when you integrate that into your recruitment practices? I mean, where does that communication manifest itself, and how do you communicate this? What opportunity do you do it?
I think there are multiple ways of doing that, Lydia, right? So one, it has to be one of the central theme of your recruiting marketing, in terms of how you are, sharing that thought of, how sustainability and CSR is paramount to you as an organization. So I think that messaging has to be very clear. So one needs to ensure that, when you're doing the recruiting marketing, those outreaches, whether their outreaches are one-to-one at the individual recruiter level or one-to-many, it is, part of your toolkit, those toolkits could be your, I would say, certain, paraphrasing of certain words or phrases, which you need to probably ensure that it's part of your talk track as a recruiter. I think that, and clearly sharing that. We also encourage a lot that people are, or as a recruiter, I'm able to express myself and share my own personal stories about how, and what I've been doing while working for this particular firm, which aligns to my value system, and what are those programs I have participated at the individual level. And I think that personalization of a story really relates a lot more with the candidate, and they're able to, they're able to see through it that, okay, yeah, of course, I think this organization means business, and they are, what they say they mean, because, this individual who's probably working for this firm for many years has the story to say. So I think that authenticity comes up when I'm probably talking on a one-to-one human interaction. I think that has the largest, I would say, resonance, apart from, of course, doing your social media marketing, where it becomes a central theme through showcasing your value system, as well as through different practices or policies or procedures or activities you have participated or your employees have participated at any given point of time.
Yeah, so it's seeping through the whole process and not just turning up as a little centerpiece, but it's really very organically put into the processes.
I think, and that's how it's going to work, Lydia, because if we do not make it organic, right, then we'll not be able to ensure that each and every individual as part of the people organization or individual who are representing a business on the business, even if he or she is a hiring manager, it won't percolate in your day-to-day interaction. So you need to let people feel it from the ground up and then let them express it. I think that's how it really works. And of course, you need to have some guardrails so that they know what they're talking and they are, doing it the right way. But I think then let them be and have them express it the best way they feel they're comfortable with.
When it comes to an employer brand or really being a desirable place to work, right? In your opinion or your experience so far, what are some approaches or ways that can help an employer of choice, one that is already desirable out there to candidates? How do they remain desirable to candidates in a world of work that is constantly evolving? As you said, there's so many different changes that come in, not just in terms of technology, but also ways of life and the future of work, etc.
No, that's a very interesting question, Lydia, and I think it stems from the fact that the company's life cycle has shortened, right? If you go through the S&P 500 list of entities, probably, I don't remember the stats around it, but I think every 10 years you see organizations probably, slip out. So what I'm trying to say that, the kind of firms you saw in the yesteryears where they were able to manage themselves and the brands was able to be sustained for years together, over a century. I think that's the thing of the past, with some exceptions, right? So that I think that's number one. Number two, the place has become a lot more competitive and, to be honest, chaotic, because even though there may be a lot more people in the job market, but I think what's more important is the right combination of skill versus demand versus supply, and I think that's where it becomes tricky. So I think as a company, we need to have a very sophisticated enough forward-thinking approach. And again, I know I tend to go a little prescriptive, so let's go one by one. Firstly, I would say fostering a very robust org culture. I think that's paramount. This involves creating an environment where employees feel valued, supported, and engaged. Because a strong culture not only attracts top talent, but also enhances the retention matrix, and I think that's important. Secondly, I would say offering a flexible work arrangement is increasingly critical. The ability to work, remotely or have a flexible hours can significantly improve work-life integration and make the company more appealing to potential candidates. Then I think investing in employee development is another crucial initiative. Providing opportunities for continuous learning. I think career advancement demonstrates the company's commitment to professional growth of its workforce. And additionally, I think promoting diversity and inclusion is essential. Because we have now heterogeneous workforce, which brings a variety of perspectives and ideas. Fostering innovation, creativity, and it also signals to a candidate that this company values and respect differences. So, and of course, compensation benefits are also the key, right? So it's not just about salary, but it's also about the health benefits, retirement plans, and other perks that contribute to overall well-being of the employee. And lastly, maintaining a strong employer brand is vital. This involves actively showcasing the company values, culture, through multiple mediums. And we can go on and on those medias, but I think I'll stop it there. But I think these are some of the initiatives which I think helps company to position themselves. And I would say it is not a one-time job. It's a continuous activity, you need to be signing up for this 24/7, 365 days a year as a corporate entity if really you want to win the challenge of the market.
And
I
indeed,
think it goes without saying.
You're absolutely right about that being a constant, it's a constant work in progress, really. So in terms of, let's just looking at that alone, all those different components or those different initiatives that you just talked about. I mean, you lead talent acquisition globally, right? So what might be some challenges around implementing them in different parts of the world, or putting them into practice in different parts of the world, and what might be some steps that you've taken to overcome them, if you'd like to share?
Absolutely. This is, I think this is a question which keeps coming all the time. And I think it's a very relevant question, honestly, especially where we are operating in a very global environment, right? Which is a combination of global and local. So I think first and foremost, Lydia, I would say cultural differences, right? So I think it becomes very complex, and one needs to address this by investing in cultural competency training, for our teams, so that they understand what are those hiring practices which are inclusive and respectful of local customs and tradition. I think that's important. Secondly, I would say regulatory compliance. Each country has its own set of labor laws and regulations, and staying compliant can be challenging. We overcome this by working closely with the local legal experts, continuously updating our policies to align with regional requirement. I think goes without saying. Talent availability. And I would say availability of skilled talent. I think it's an open secret that varies by the region, right? So to mitigate this, data analytics through which you can identify hotspots and do targeted recruitment strategies, which I think is very important. And then, of course, as we said in the previous question, employer branding is a key ingredient to attract top talent. And then, of course, communication barriers, right? Language differences, time zones. I think it's very challenging. So we need to use a lot of technology tools to facilitate real-time collaboration. Like recently, we used on MS Teams, you have the ability to transcribe and translate into any of your local language which you understand. I think that's a boon. I know you need to get used to it. But I think it's important. So you talk in your own mother language, which you're comfortable with, and the other audience can actually read the transcript in the language of their preference. I think nothing like it. I think technology is great here, right? So I think that's important. I would say, fifthly, I would say consistency in candidate experience. I think that is something which is a given. We need to ensure that irrespective of whichever region we are operating, we need to have certain processes which are standardized, to give a seamless experience. And that's where I think technology plays a very important role. You can tweak a bit in terms of what works for you in the region, but largely I would say the transcript to run the show has to be 80% consistent and 20% can be localized. Then, I would say retention of global talent. It's in this competitive market requires a very strategic approach. And so whether it is competitive compensation, career development, supporting work environment, I think are some of the things which helps in working in this environment, which is global, constantly churning, complex. So I think it's important that you need to be on your toes to ensure that you are aligned and you're taking everyone together. I think that's important.
Yeah, I would probably say it's also VUCA, that the environment that we're living in, and the whole economic environment as well. So there's so many volatilities as you mentioned, and talent acquisition itself has evolved tremendously. We just look at the past 3 or 4 years, and you're already going to see that. I mean, the automation and the AI that's come in, and it's completely transformed what talent acquisition has been. So, question is, how do you foresee talent acquisition evolving in the next 5 years, maybe? Let's not even go to 10 years. Let's just look at the next 5 years,
or rather, I would say probably the next 2-3 years, right?
Maybe yes, 2 and 5 is too long.
Right? Too long, right? And I think and this space is like changing every few days. I think it's so challenging to keep a pace with the trends. But something I think you can only do it by keeping your eyes and ears open, reading about it, and then uh, be on ahead, if not ahead, along the learning curve. I think that's important. But I think what I anticipate, I think a lot of positives. First and foremost, I think that's the underline. It's going to just make life much more easier and efficient, and I think with speed. I think because it will not only help us in streamlining the recruitment processes, be it from candidate screening to all the way for interview scheduling. And I think it will help to reduce time to hire. I think goes without saying, and that would also lead to teams focusing more on strategic activities. So I think that's where I look at this as an opportunity where it will help us to do those mundane tasks and keep our energy intact to focus on more strategic and value-added tasks. And I think who would not like to do that, right? Yeah. If I have somebody to manage my diary rather than focusing it myself or having somebody to help me, nothing like it, right? So that's number one. I would say data-driven decision making. I think with advanced analytics, it will become more prevalent with AI, where we can be able to identify trends, predict hiring needs, assess candidate fitment with a little bit more accuracy. And this will lead to more informed and effective, hiring decisions, honestly. Thirdly, I would say, personalized candidate experience, because through these tools, we'll be able to get more personalized and engaging candidate, because with not only from like tailoring specific job recommendation to customized communication. So candidates will be able to receive a more individualized approach and thus enhancing the overall experience. I think it will do its bit in bias reduction as well. I know the jury is still yet to be out there, but I feel that this is one where we'll be able to reduce our unconscious bias by relying on data and algorithm. Of course, people may object to the fact that how well those large language models have been trained. I know that's a challenge, and I think all of us need to work on the ethics part of it. But I think if we are able to use it diligently, I think it will be a boon when it comes to this piece. And then SWP, the strategic workforce planning. I think this would just make it a lot more easy because it will be more predictive. We'll be able to anticipate talent needs and be more, and that does creating a more proactive recruitment plans and strategies. I think that is something which would be a North Star for anybody, especially in the hiring space. And then of course, upskilling, reskilling, right? This would help us to elevate our teams, help them to do a little bit more than what they've been doing, and then create opportunities where they can segue their careers and create more T-shaped careers, honestly. And plus, I would say, I think we've already seen that, so I would not say that I anticipate, but global talent pools, because with remote working, I think to some extent, the geographical boundaries have become a lot more blurred, and that's helping companies to really attract talent from anywhere and everywhere, and utilize it to the best of their ability. So I know it's a long-winded question. I can go on and on.
Which brings me to my next question, actually. With all this combined, what would a talent acquisition professional, what sort of traits or what kind of skills, what kind of person do they need to be in the next 5 years, for instance, with all this automation and the different changes that you're talking about now? How will that professional be transformed from what they are now?
I think, first of all, future is now and it's today. So I follow that mantra. That's number one. But I think more importantly, you need to be consistent and inquisitive. As long as, because consistency and inquisitiveness would take you places, even though you may not know it today, but eventually you'll get there. So I think for me, I think that these are two things which are paramount. Of course, you need to be pretty grounded in your value system to be successful because there's so much of noise in this world, right? You need to have the ability to really modulate noise versus voice and do the right thing. So I think I'll stop it there, but I think these are a few tenets I hold myself responsible, and I try to work keeping on these aspects in my day-to-day life, whether it is on personal and professional front. And I'm sure it will hold true for anybody else who's listening to me.
And final question, Akshay, what is your favorite or most memorable recruitment story?
I think there've been so many in my 20 plus years of experience. And I think it will be like very challenging to say, okay, I
to pick
love
one
that
and
one
not
over
the
the
other.
of course. But I think I would let me go with one where we actually had to set up a new innovation hub, and that required to hire close to almost like 200 highly specialized people within a tight time frame, right? And that was not only challenging because from a niche skills perspective, because it was in these emerging technologies like AI, machine learning, blockchain, and right, the demand and supply is such a big mismatch. But so I think that was I think one of the important recent challenges. And like typically like anybody else would do, I think most important baby steps were of number one, of course, do a market mapping for your talent intelligence to understand, where the talent resides, where it is, and then create some strategy around to really reach out to them. Uh, uh, and I think employer branding campaign has to be, again, work through that to ensure that, you are positioning the firm as a leader in innovation and desirable place to work, because I think that's the story which I think you need to get it right. So be it in industry events, partnership with leading universities, we had to do that to really get the messaging out. And then, of course, there has to be some strategic partnership as well. You can't always do it yourself. So whether it is those, headhunting firms, tech communities, networks, reaching out to passive candidates, I think we had to do it. But I think always in any of the recruitment strategy, I think I personally put a lot of emphasis on internal talent and how to really augment that. And I think I did same with this particular case study where how to really recharge the internal mobility program by identifying potential employees. They may not be ready for the job, but probably they may be at the cusp of, if we really skill them a bit and you maybe be a little bit more patient with them, they'll come up good in those roles. If not today, probably in the next few months. So I think, and that's important. So I think from any talent strategy, be it this one I'm narrating, or otherwise, I think that becomes I think one central point in any of the plans I have made, or the way I've suggested or recommended to my business leads or my other HR partners, and there was no different in this. So I think we were able to manage it through because it was work against time. We did that.
What was the time frame you were working with?
It was like almost a quarter.
Quarter.
And this was on the top of it because we had challenges with the Ukraine-Russia crisis, and so we had to really do a lot of this movement of talent. So that was the backdrop. So right? Suddenly, one fine day, you had to shut your shop, and then but the work continues to go on, right? You need to manage your clients, so we had to set up a operation somewhere else within a small span of time. So, and that was the backdrop of this challenging situation.
Yeah, thank you very much, Akshay, for your time and all these insights, and also the great final anecdote that you just shared with us. So for those listening in, I'm sure they will have questions for you, especially with all the different, prescriptive information that you just shared with them. So whoever wants to pick up a conversation with you, where can they connect with you?
I think I'm pretty hyperactive on LinkedIn. I think that's the best way to reach out to me. Yeah, if I may not be able to respond today, I'll definitely respond tomorrow, for sure. And I think that's the best way to reach out to me.
All right, great. Thanks again, Akshay. We have been in conversation with Akshay Mathur of Experian. Thank you for joining us, and remember to subscribe to stay tuned for more weekly episodes from All in Recruitment.